Welcome grade 7s, 8s and 9s. So today we're going to look at some mathematics and the basics of algebra. This lesson is basically a lot of new things for the grade 7s. It is everything you need to know in grade 8, and by grade 9 this is only revision. However, this is very interesting to look at, and I suggest that you do take the time to go through this video. Maybe it will clarify some things to you, maybe it's going to make things look easier, but just go through it, and yes, good luck. I hope you enjoy it. So when we started algebra, we actually started with it in grade 1. So it really does exist in grade 1, however it looks completely different. So in grade 1 I couldn't give you x, y and z, so I actually just gave you apples and pears. So what did we look at when we had apples and pears? So we had what we call pictures. And algebra is literally picture representations of numbers. So when we were given this in grade 1, we were asked how many apples were there. So we had to add them together, and then we had to write in we have 4 apples. Further than that, we had different pictures. We could have had some pears, and in this case there are how many pears? 3 pears. And then we got to grade 2 or 3, and it got a little bit more interesting, where we had apples and pears, and we were asked, okay, but how many apples are there and how many pears are there? So if we added the apples and the pears together, we had to say that we have 2 apples and we have 2 pears. And then we got through grade 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and then we were upgraded to grade 7, and then we got to the stage of having this. So we know this. This is a basics by now. I can't give you 4 apples and tell you to add them together. So instead of having apples, we are now replacing our apples with A's. So now we have 4 A's instead of 4 apples. This is where the algebra comes in. So the apples, the pictures, have just been replaced by something else. And though that is in fact just algebra. So let's try the next one. This is what we had in grade 1. Let's upgrade it to grade 7 level. And instead of pears, we have the letter P. This is simple enough. We can get the hang of this. So again, what happened when we got a mixed thing like this? The same thing happened. We replaced our apples with A's, and we replaced our P's with pears. And that is what we ended up with, 2 apples and 2 pears, or 2A plus 2P. So now things got a little bit more intricate. We had this was easy enough, but now what happens if I have a bowl, and in the bowl I put an apple and a pear. So together they are in a bowl. Now when I do this, I want you to picture going to Spar or Pick n Pay or to any grocery shop to buy a basket with fruit in. So you get those with the polystyrene at the bottom, and then they are glad wrapped with the plastic over it, and then the price is on top. So every time that you see a basket with this glad wrap on, just imagine you can't take the apple or the pear out. They are together in the basket. Okay. So now we get to the stage of saying, okay, in my basket I have an apple and a pear. So now we say, okay, they are together, they cannot be separated, they are glad wrapped together, and there is a price on. So now we call it A times P. So when we say A times P, we can write it with a multiplication sign, or we can write it with a dot in between, a full stop mark, or we can just leave it out. Okay. That is basically where it's at. And so this is what it looks like when I've got AP together. They are one thing, they are a term, they are glad wrapped together, and you can't separate them. Okay, now I tell you, okay, what if I have a pear and another pear together? So in my basket I have 2 pears, just like you would buy them at Pick n Pay. So how would I write it? I would write it as P times P, P dot P, or P squared. And in this case, we are multiplying. We are creating one term, one basket. So this p squared is one thing. Okay, yes, it was a p and a p together and I added them, but we didn't add them, we added them in a basket, we added them as a package. Now they are packaged together as p squared. So there are two pairs packaged together, one term, one item. Okay, so let's move on. And we get it to be a little bit more difficult. Next we have our basket, and in our basket we have a pear, we have another pear, and we have an apple. Okay, again, they are all together in a basket. They have become one item. They are all glad wrapped together. You can't take the apple out and go pay for it. You have to buy the whole basket. So what are we doing in this case? We are saying we've got a basket with an apple, a pear, and a pear. So it's one thing, one item. We are multiplying them. It's one thing, therefore we can write it as APP or AP squared. When we multiply, we are creating one term, one item that we pay for. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Okay, we can do it a little bit more interesting. We can have more than that. We can have a bigger bowl, and we can have a pear, a banana, two apples, a pear, and another banana. Okay, so now our basket has become a little bit fuller, but it's still a basket. It is still all glad wrapped together. So let's look at what we've got. We have two apples, an A and A. We have two bananas, B and a B, and we've got two pears, a P and a P. So yes, we can write it out like that, or we can just simplify it to look like this: a squared, b squared, and p squared. In this case, you can see that there are two apples together in the basket. There are two bananas in the basket, and there are two pears in the basket. Again, when we multiply, we create one term. Okay, you are allowed to leave out the dot. Okay, most of the time it will look like this, and they can ask you to write it out in extended formation like this. Okay, now we've seen how we add things together. We've seen how we can make up baskets for different items. Now what happens if we have different items in baskets and we add them together? So now we've got a basket with an apple and pear, another basket with an apple and pear, and another one with an apple and pear. Therefore, we have three baskets. Now, this basket we can write as AP. Again, each basket can be replaced by AP because there's an apple and a pear in each. Therefore, if we've got AP plus another AP, what do we have? Three APs. We had three baskets of AP. We had three of the same terms. They were similar, they were exactly the same. So if you do this and you say, hang on, I've got three apples and I've got three pears, and I write it like this, then your teacher is going to say, no, this is not possible. Why? Why does this look wrong? Because in my answer consists of a bowl with three apples and three pears. But when I went to the shop, what did I have? I had three baskets. Now I only have one. I had three polystyrene plates where my fruit were in. I can't just go home with one. Therefore, this is as wrong as you can possibly go. Okay, if I had three baskets, 1, 2, 3, they have to look the same. I have 1, I have 2, I have 3. I have 3 AP. Okay, don't do this. Don't take the items inside and put them together. Okay, they are one thing, one unit, therefore you can't do that. Okay, let's look at another one. Oh, this looks a little bit more interesting, a little bit more grade 7-ish. So in this bowl, I have a bowl with 3 pears. I have a bowl with 2 pears. So there's an item. I have another item. There's another item. So they look pretty much similar, but they're not quite. So I have 1, 2, 3 bowls with pears in, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with 2 pears in. So how am I going to write this in grade 7 algebra? every basket that has 2 pairs in can be replaced by p squared, because that is one item. It's not 2p, it is a basket, therefore it's p squared. So there we go. All of those replaced by p squared. And those with 3 pairs in with p cubed. So now that we've replaced them, what is my answer going to look like? My answer will just be 3p cubed plus 5p squared. Okay, so you can't then go and put them together. They are separate items. I've got those items and I have those items. I have 3 of those and I have 5 of those. Don't get confused by putting them together. They are not the same thing. Okay, so now we've moved on to grade 8 algebra. In grade 8, we have different baskets. Okay, they are completely different. In some of them I've got an apple and a pear, and in others I just have pears. But now I put them all together in my trolley. Okay, so they are not just similar, they are now being added together as well. So in my trolley I go to Pick and Pay and I take all of those and I put them in. Okay, so that is what I end up with, an AP, 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 P cubed and P cubed. That is what I have in my trolley. As soon as I put them in a trolley, can you see I put the brackets around? Okay, this is very important because as soon as I have that, I have one term. Okay, they are together in my trolley. There's nothing else in my trolley. Okay, because I have one trolley, I can now say I've got 3AP in my trolley and I've got 2P cubed in my trolley. You'll understand now. Okay, so this is one trolley. But now what happens if I have more than one trolley? So here I have 3AP plus 2AP. Okay, 3AB plus 2AP. So there's my trolley. I have 3 baskets with apples and bananas in, and I've got 2 baskets with apples and pears in. That's my one trolley, and that is what it looks like. However, if I have 3 of those, that means I have 3 trolleys. Okay, therefore I can say I've got 3 trolleys with 3 apples and bananas and 2 apples and pears in each. So that means that I have 3 groups of AB, 3 groups of 3. So in this trolley there's 3 apple bananas, there's 3 more apples and bananas, and there are 3 more apples and bananas. See, 1, 2, 3 groups. So how many apples and bananas do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 groups of apples and bananas. So if I write it out algebraically, I'm going to say 3 times 3 gives me the 9 AB. All of that is one thing. Now you remember like 3 or 4 slides ago when we did the multiplication next to each other? The same applies here, because 3 times 3 times A times B will give me 9AB, where we can multiply the numbers together and then say times AB. Next we have our apples and pears. So I've got my equation, well, my sentence that looks like this, and I have to now determine how many apples and pears I have. So this expression tells me that I have 3 groups of 2AP. So there's my 3 groups of the 2AP, and that's where I'm going to multiply those two together. So there I've got 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, and each has an apple and a pear. And 3 times 2 is 6AP. Okay, next up we have another one that looks pretty much similar, except that now this time we have an X in front. Okay, so as soon as, remember, all your work can't always be explained with pictures. I've tried as far as what I possibly can, but now I've got X groups of, so I don't know how many groups there's. So we can still go back to our previous slide and apply the same rule, where I take whatever's in front, how many groups of it, and multiply it inwards. So if I say I've got X groups of AB, that means I can have any amount of trolleys with 3 apple bananas, packaging and 2 apple and pear packaging. So the same thing applies. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply it. So x times 3ab. I'm just looking at the first term in the brackets, the first type of parcels I have. So now it means I've got x groups of 3. So x groups of 3 and I multiply together means I just say x times 3ab. So AB already means 3 times A times B, and I'm just multiplying an extra x. So 3 times A times B times x. I always try and write it in alphabetical order as far as possible because it just looks a lot neater. And next up we are going to look at the second term, so apples and pears. So again, I found it means that I've got x groups of 2 apple pears. So x times 2ap gives me 2apx. And then my final answer will just be 3abx plus 2apx. Again, they look similar, but they look a lot similar, but they are not exactly the same. So therefore, this is our final answer. We can't do anything else with it. We leave it as it is. So before we move on, I would like to explain how we multiply positive and negative numbers. So in the previous grades, we noticed that if we have a positive number like 3 and we subtract a 3, then we get 0. So inevitably we can see that a positive 3 with a negative 3 gives me 0, and that they are inverses or opposites of each other. Positive and negative are opposites of each other, inverses, just like multiplication and division are opposites or inverses. So long time ago, you had this 2 times 3. That means I've got 2 groups of 3, and if I put them together, that gives me positive 6. The same would imply that positive 4 times positive 5 is 4 groups of positive 5, which will give me a total of positive 20. So let's move on to what will happen if I say a positive 2 times negative 3. So if we apply the same concept as in the previous slide, we can see that we have 2 groups of negative 3. 2 groups of negative 3. And together they will give me a negative 6. So what happens if I say I've got negative 4 groups of positive 5? So the negative 4 would mean I need the inverse or opposite of 4 groups of 5. So 4 groups of positive 5 will give me positive 20. However, I need to have the inverse of this. Therefore, the inverse of positive 20 is negative 20. In this case, you can see I had a negative number and I multiplied it with a positive number. And that gives me my negative number. So in this slide, we can see that if we have a positive number and we multiply it with a negative, my answer will be negative. If I have a negative and I multiply it with a positive, my answer will be a negative. So if the signs are different, then my answer is negative. Next we have negative times negative. So if we read this, it would say that we negative 2 times negative 3. That means I need the inverse or opposite of 2 groups of negative 3. Therefore, 2 groups of negative 3 will give me negative 6. And we have to determine the inverse of this, and that will give me a positive 6. The same applies to negative 4 times negative 5. We need to determine the inverse or opposite of 4 groups of negative 5. Therefore, we can say 4 groups of negative 5 is negative 20, and the inverse of negative 20 is positive 20. So as a summary, I can say that a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative always gives me a positive. So if the signs are the same and they are multiplied with each other, it will give me a positive answer. Contrary to that, if I have a positive number and I multiply it with a negative number, or a negative with a positive, it will always give me a negative number. Let's look at some examples. So we are looking at similar terms. So we've got 3a, 2b, a, and b. So we just look at the algebra part. They've got a, b, a, and b. So in this expression, I have two different things. I've got apples and I've got bananas. Okay, so the important part here is to see that here I've got 3 apples. Okay, that's together in one basket. Here I've got 2 bananas in a basket. There I've got a negative apple in a basket, and here I've got 6 bananas in a basket. So group them together. My apples, one color, my bananas, another color. I'm going to refer to my apples and bananas because that is going to leave the image in your head. So if I have 3 and I eat 1, I've got 2 left. And if I have 2 and I add 6, I've got 8. Okay, I hope this is making sense to you. In the next one, I've got x squared y. Here I've got x squared y, and x y squared. Okay, so my baskets don't, this basket and that basket doesn't look the same. However, this basket with my x squared y looks the same as this basket's x squared y. So highlight them in separate colors. You've got xy squared, xy squared. So if I have 4 and I take away 2, I have 2 left. And if I have 1 and I add 3, then I have 4. You can group them together like that, or you can just do it in your head. Important. Can you see that when I highlight them, I highlight the sign in front of it together? Because if I move this, I have to move the sign with it. If I move this one, I have to move the sign with it. Okay, let's look at this. And this looks a little bit crazy and messed up, but okay, let's take each of them at their own. 2x, x, y. So in this basket, I have x, and y. In this basket, I've got x, y, 2, x squared y, and x, y squared. Okay, so this one and that one I can rewrite to look like the others. And then I can see that this one has x squared y, and here's another x squared y. Therefore, I can highlight them in the same color. I can also put them in my expression into brackets so that I can see what I've got. Here I've got 2 and I take away 4. Here I have 2 and I add 3. Therefore, if I simplify it, I've got a negative 2 and I've got a positive 5. Next, I want to show to you what's going to happen if we multiply more than one thing together. So in this case, we have 2 different trolleys. We have a trolley that has x2 plus 2x minus 3 and another one with 2x plus 4x. Yes, I can simplify the brackets, but I don't want to. I just want to show the example to you. Okay, what I want you to do is you are going to take your 2 different trolleys and look at them separately. Okay, so let's just look at this one first. We've got negative 3. And we've got in our trolley, we've got x2 plus 2x minus 3. So that means I've got negative 3 of each of them. So I'm going to multiply each of them. So I highlight them in different colors so that I can work in different things so that you can see what's going to happen. It's easier this way. So first we're going to look at red. And on this side, obviously, I've got purple and yellow. Same thing. So let's look at this one. Negative 3, there's our negative 3. Times our x2. Okay, so that's the first thing I need to do. The second thing I need to do is I need to do the green, which is going to be negative 3 times the positive 2x in our next bracket. We are adding these together because they are one thing here inside. Okay, we are adding this to that, Even though it's a negative number, it's being added together. So it's in one trolley. So we still have to add our blue term, which is going to be the negative 3 times negative 3. Now let's look at the right hand side. Here I've got positive 3 times x2, and we have positive 3 times 4x. Okay, so that is all our terms that we are going to add together. So what's going to happen? I've got 3 trolleys and I've got another 3 trolleys. I can't go to the front of the till with 6 trolleys. I need to put everything in one trolley. So I need to see what do I have to that I can add together. So yeah, I have a negative 6 because negative 3 times 2 is a negative 6. Here I've got a negative 3 and a positive 2, therefore I'm adding a negative 6. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9, so I'm adding a positive 9. Here I've got a positive 3, there's positive 3 times x2, which will give me a positive 6x. And you've got positive 3 times 4, which will give me positive 12x. Now, if I look at this, I've got two different things. I have x's, there's an x, another x, a whole number, a constant, an x and another x. So, I've got those are going to be similar, and that one is going to be a different one. So, everything in red clouds can be together. That means I've got a negative 6. If I take negative 6 and I have another negative 6, that means I've got negative 12. If I add a positive 6, that gives me negative 6, plus 12 gives me a positive 6. So here I've analyzed it, negative 6 and negative 6 gives me negative 12. I still have to add this a positive 6 and positive 12. This negative 12 and that positive 12 can cancel each other out because it's negative and a positive 12. Then I'm left with just plus 6. So in my equation, I've got a 6x and my blue is just plus 9. And that is what I end up with. So the easiest is to analyze it step by step by step. Try not to skip steps. Don't leave out the arrows or anything. If you leave them out, it's going to make your life a lot more difficult later on. So good luck with these. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. Please comment. I really would love some feedback. And good luck with algebra.